you guys broke up or something. Wow, that was quick. They were sitting together just a minute ago.
Well, you know, it kind of lasts so long.
I don't know what's wrong with me today. A little emotional. All these songs are getting to me. I think I really understand what the issue is.
Menopause? Sorry. I don't know where that came from, Pastor.
Menopause. No, I guess it's all the women that have influenced my life so much. Just means a lot to me that we can honor them. And for so long, women were afraid to speak out. They were told not to speak out. A woman can't stand up here and preach to you all. And things like that. But yet, who was the first to see the resurrection? That's right, it was the women who ran and told them. They were the first to proclaim Jesus had risen. And yet, so many times we want to have the women be quiet and get back in the kitchen because that's all they're good for, right? And it just bothers me a lot that we discount half of our population. We don't listen to what they have to say when their words are so much full of wisdom. And what I'm doing today, the sermon that I'm doing today, it actually comes from Beth Shalom. Because they are celebrating, do you all know what they're celebrating? This
Purim.
I know you know. Not you. Purim, that's right. Purim. Do you know what Purim is? It is, they celebrate Purim, and I wish Christians would do this. I mean, we believe in the book of Esther, and that's where the whole thing comes from. They celebrate, and you dress up, and you drink. As a matter of fact, it's actually, you're required
To get
drink.
drunk.
Yeah, to get drunk. I didn't want to say that, but you're required
drunk.
to drink. And it's a celebration of Esther, and Esther saving the Jewish people. And the word Purim, do you know what the word Purim? Okay, first of all, I'll give you a little Hebrew lesson here. When you have I-N at the end of the word, that's plural. So it's Purim. And what is Purim? It's casting lots. It's lots. Like you roll dice. Okay. So in the story of Esther, there's the part where the bad guy, Haman, he didn't do it.
Oh, yeah.
When I say Haman, you're supposed to hiss and boo because he's the villain.
Right.
So the villain of the story, Haman.
Boo.
Okay, there we go. Haman
Boo.
gets this plot together. I'm going to use he now. Anyway, he gets this plot together to wipe out all the Jews that are in exile in Persia. And we have Hadassah. Hadassah. Do you know Hadassah? You might know her by her other name. If you translate Hadassah from Hebrew into English, you know what you get?
Esther.
No, you get Myrtle.
Oh, God.
Myrtle.
Yeah, how about that? The flower, the myrtle flower, the little bush that just
Me
like,
too.
yeah.
Oh, great.
It means myrtle. I don't know where Esther comes from, but they also called her Esther. Okay. And then she had her father, her parents had died, and her uncle, who was Mordecai, raised her. Okay. And she was very beautiful and very pleasant to look at. And what happened was King Xerxes, I won't try his other name, but his biblical name, but we know him as, from history as King Xerxes. He comes along and he wants to have this feast. And so he tells his people to go get his queen and bring her to have this feast. Beautiful woman, everybody wants to see the queen, the beautiful queen. And Queen Vashti says, no, no, I'm not doing that. I'm the queen. And I'm going to stay right here. And I'm not going to go to your wedding. Well, that ruffled a little feathers. And so Vashti doesn't come when the king calls her. And so the king's men tell King Xerxes, hey, you know what has to happen? And he doesn't do what has to happen. Anybody disobeys the king, what happens? Yeah, exactly. Not supposed to make that subtle, but yeah, that's what happened. Well, he decides he's going to banish her. And now she's gone, and we don't have a queen. So, what are we going to do? Well, I got all these women in his kingdom. Gather them up. And he sends a eunuch to go gather up all the women and find the beautiful, of course, virgins, and he's going to choose from them. And he sends them out, and he has them made up, and he has them beauty treatments for, I forget now, was it 3 months?
That's why
I think it's 3 months.
I
And so they go and they have this beautiful. Can you imagine going to the spa for 3 months? No wonder she was so beautiful, right? And so, of course, they parade them in front of the king, and he chooses Esther to be his wife, his new wife. Anyway, so Esther is there, and she's getting close to the king, like you're supposed to. See how you get close to someone, you get to know someone, they get to know you, change minds, change hearts. Okay? So she's there, and Uncle Mordecai is standing outside because he's making sure they're not going to mistreat basically his daughter, even though it's his niece. But he's keeping an eye from the distance. And he overhears the guards plotting. Hey, let's go get rid of this king. He's a jerk. And so Mordecai goes and tells Esther. And Esther tells the king. And the king loves it because he has ordered a attempt on his life. And so he praises Mordecai. And then Haman. Haman is one of his. Haman is one of his top officials, and so King Xerxes elevates him even more, and he says he is the man that you need to listen to. And when he walks in, people kneel and bow down before him. Except one person. Who's that? Mordecai. Mordecai says, I only bow to my God. Right? Sound familiar? Sounds like straight out of Daniel. Right? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're not going to bow down to the idol. They're only going to bow down to God, throw them in the fiery furnace. They come out because they were done. Kind of like the cookies I smell back there.
That's what I smell.
So they come out, they're not burnt because they were faithful to God. Daniel doesn't do the bow down, doesn't listen to King Nebuchadnezzar. And so what happens to him? Throw him in the lion's den. Lion says, you know what, I'm not really hungry. And Daniel walks out, right? Mordecai's not going to bow down. And Haman is livid. Haman is livid. Right? So he's going to get his revenge. And he knows that Mordecai is a Jew. And so he's not just going to get his revenge on Mordecai. He's going to get his revenge on all the Jews. So he goes to the king. And right now he's pretty high up there, right? He's one of the top officials. And he tells the king, these people do not listen to our laws. He says their laws or customs are different. Their laws, they are different. So he wants to wipe these people out because they are different. And so they cast Purim, they cast lots, they cast, let me say it again. You'll understand why it's plural. They cast lots. That's one time. Per. And it falls on the 13th month. And that's when this decree that Haman
Boo.
has talked the king into putting out and to exterminate all the Jews in the land. So, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Well, I just had a question. Is that why 13 is an unlucky number?
Could be. Could be.
Only here,
Printed.
not in other countries.
But here we have it. The Jews are set to be exterminated because why?
The tempers
They're
were.
different. They're different. Interesting, huh? That could never happen, right? Not in civilized, modern times.
Certainly not in America.
Not in America. Never in America. So what happens is Mordecai hears about this. They built the gallows. They're ready to go. And they're going to do mass executions. That wouldn't happen in Germany. That wouldn't happen because people are different. But here they are. They're ready to go. And Mordecai goes to Esther and says, Esther, you're the queen. Go talk to Xerxes and dissuade him from this. And so Esther says, I can't. First of all, I've never told him that I'm a Jew. Second of all, I can't just go into the king's presence without him summoning me. And Mordecai says, you need to go. And Esther goes and stands in front of the king. And he loved her so much. He got to know her so much. And he understood who she was. And she says, this decree will kill me. And he's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And she says, I'm a Jew. She said, this decree will kill all. And when he found out, he canceled the decree. And he found out that it was Haman who had done this, and he used the gallows for Haman instead.
Ooh.
Yay.
Yay.
So that's the story of Esther, right? And now I was trying really hard to rewrite it, and I was going to use the name Myrtle, just to throw everybody off. And I was going to tell the story about Myrtle and Uncle Morty. But I decided to go ahead and just tell the story the way it is. But think about putting that story in today's perspective. Do we know people that are a little bit different, that a lot of people want to get rid of? They point to their own Bible and they say they deserve death. What's the difference?
None.
None, exactly. When the LGBTQ community is threatened, we can't just demand because we're a minority. We must have somebody on the inside to sit down, to talk with the officials of our country, to make them see us as people. I use myself there, okay? Being an ally.
Allies are allowed to do that.
Thank you. But to get to see people and not a concept, and not something that you don't understand, but see actual people. And that's what is needed today. We need to have people that are willing to go into these communities, these places, and say, look, I'm a human being. And what you're asking is to kill a human being. Our world today is not ideal. And that's why we need people to speak up, to speak like the prophets of old. They speak truth to power. Jesus spoke truth to power. And he had compassion for people. And that's what we need to remember, is while we're speaking truth, we're not just speaking to a figurehead, we're speaking to a person. And we need to know, why is this person so committed to ending someone else? Why? What is it in them that desires this? Because before you do that, until you do that, I should say, until you do that, until you can understand them, they will never want to understand you. They have a lot of fears, a lot of anxiety, a lot of baggage behind them as well. And all that stuff might just put it on you, an easy target, on the marginalized, on the other people that are oppressed, people that are different. That's the easy path. But I want to point out a couple things with. I'm not gonna bust you out. Don't worry. I want to point out 3 things that Esther did, and take this with you as we fight for social justice, equality, equity for all people. She realized that she didn't have to do it alone. She wasn't the only one that was working for this. Mordecai was there with her. He was helping her. He was instructing her how to talk to the king. There was also a eunuch that helped her prepare for her beauty pageant, if you will, to make her the queen. She was just a part, albeit a major part, of the plan to facilitate change in the way people looked at her people. She had listened to those around her and valued what they recommended. I think we can all learn from that. We don't have to do it alone. There are people with us. And at the Capitol, there's going to be 400 people. Listen to them. Encourage them. Help them to understand that they are worth so much more because they're made in the image of God. The second thing that she did, she used her position for justice. Think about that. If she wasn't where she was, that would have never happened. Wonder if she wasn't where she was, if Mordecai wouldn't have known what, let's say his name, Haman, was up to. But the fact that she was in the right place at the right time and was able to do the right thing made all the difference. She used her position to do justice. I always, when I think of social justice, there's one name that comes to mind for me, and that is Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick. I heard so many derogatory things about him for what he was doing. And it's like, oh yeah, you make millions and millions of dollars. How are you oppressed? Well, that's just the point. He's using his position to make known a of injustices. And that's what we all need to do, is make our relationships and get to know people, let people know you as the person you are. And this is how we do justice. By using the people around us, using our positions in society to do this. And the third thing she did, her people, while being under the rule of people who sought to oppress, dehumanize, all because of why? Because they were different. And didn't try to change themselves to fit in to what others thought they should be. And because of that, they were devalued as human beings. She told who she was. Could you imagine that? In the civil rights movement, you couldn't hide who you were. I mean, people were going to know you were black. There's some people that got away with it, but they were really light-skinned. But still, she was getting away with it. She was the queen. She didn't have to let people know, but she did. She did. Because it was important that the king know who she was. Not fitting in, not going with the flow, not hiding out, but being herself. When this was the case and her people were on the brink of extermination, she spoke up. She used her position. She knew she was not alone, and she spoke up, and she gave power and sided with the marginalized. And that's the story of Esther, and that's how she saved the Jewish people. And that's why we celebrate Purim. The second, the plural of Purim, is the lots when Haman was to be hanged.
Yay.
See how that turned around on him? All right. So, I hope I gave you something to think about in these coming days on pride and everything. One of the things that Cindy says about being at the booth, and I encourage you all to be there. Just maybe for half an hour, people come up and you get to know people. You get to know people. And you'll see me go talk to the guy with the megaphone, telling us we're all going to hell. Because if he's talking to me, he's not shouting. And he's going to get to know a lot about me. But that's something for you all.